you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Chancellor Richard Eakin, and I'm delighted to have you here today. I have with me today the April 1st edition of the university newspaper, the Carolina. The editorial staff, in a spoof in that paper, reported that the President of the United States would visit our campus. Ladies and gentlemen, he's here. I know that I speak for those assembled, and indeed for the residents of Eastern North Carolina, in expressing our pleasure that President Bush is with us today. We're pleased and we are honored that he has chosen to visit East Carolina University, Greenville, and Pitt County. I'm also pleased to welcome the congressional delegation to this significant event, and I want to express special thanks and welcome to Congressman Jones. Thank you, Congressman Jones, for extending the invitation to the President to visit Eastern North Carolina. We're also delighted to have the members of the Presidential Traveling Party in our community as well. This is a historic event in the life of our university and of our region. Seldom does any university or community have the opportunity to host the President of the United States. In our case, this marks the first such visit for East Carolina University. Today's event adds to the distinctions that East Carolina University can claim. We're proud of our newly designated doctoral research university status, our national leadership role in robotic surgery, the excellence of our undergraduate programs, and the splendid record of service to our region. We're also proud of the achievements of our athletics teams. With some apology to the President's proud Texas heritage, our football team took the measure of Texas Tech in a bowl game in Houston. The ECU Pirate baseball team is ranked number 19 in the nation this week. And knowing of the President's long-standing interest in the national pastime, the Pirate baseball team and I thought he would enjoy being an honorary member of our team. And so, in a few moments, I'll present him with his new uniform. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce the President of the United States, George W. Bush.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Okay. Richard, thank you very much for your kind hospitality. I am proud to be an honorary member of the East Carolina baseball team. I am proud to be on this campus. I'm proud to be in East Carolina. And I'm proud I got so many friends in this great state. It is such an honor to be here, and I want to thank you all for coming. I understand that some good folks spent the night last night here to be here. I promise not to speak so long so you will fall asleep. But I'm really thankful that you're here. I'm thankful to be out of Washington, D.C. with the good, hard-working people of this part of our country. And I'm pleased to report that a commercial charter airplane is close to landing in Hainan Island. The plane is expected to leave that island in a couple of hours, bound for Guam and then for Hawaii. Earlier today, I had the privilege and honor to meet fellow North Carolinians, Bob and Sandra Blocker, the parents of one of the 24 crew members, Petty Officer 3rd Class Stephen Blocker. They are, of course, as you can imagine, thrilled to know that the servicemen and women are returning home. These have been difficult days for all the families. And these days are a reminder of the sacrifices all our men and women in uniform and their family make every single day for freedom. And so, we're proud and thankful for the service folks. We're proud and thankful for their parents, and we can't wait for them to get home. I am pleased to be here with the senior senator from the great state of North Carolina. He's a strong ally in the United States Senate. I'm pleased to be here. I am pleased. Quoting the Vice President. The man yelled big time. I'm pleased to be here with your Congressman, Walter Jones. As well as congressmen from around your state, Howard Coble, Robin Hayes, Charles Taylor. Let me tell you, now you all may be aware that I laid out a budget recently. I like to call it the people's budget. Because it says first and foremost, in Washington, we understand that we're not spending the government's money. We are spending the people's money. And the 5 people I just introduced stood strong with the people of North Carolina when they voted for a responsible budget. I can't say that was the case for every member of the North Carolina delegation. I just want to remind you, as these votes keep coming down, when we get to choose between bigger government and the people, you're only one email away of reminding reluctant members of the Congress that your point of view matters. And mark my words, having been up there for a period of time, I can assure you that there is a struggle between whose money it is and where it ends up. Now I want to describe to you the budget I laid out, just to put your mind at ease. We increased discretionary spending in the budget. That means programs other than entitlement programs by 4%. Now many of you work hard to get along, and you hadn't had a 4% pay raise lately. Inflation is lower than 4%. So I thought it would be reasonable to ask the federal government to live on a 4% increase in the discretionary spending account. A 4% increase in discretionary spending increases federal assistance to North Carolina education programs to more than $947 million a year. A 4% discretionary budget means that North Carolina's Head Start programs will receive $127 million a year. The budget provides $78 million in funding for water resource projects along North Carolina rivers and waterways. It provides a 366% increase of federal monies to help conserve North Carolina natural resources. It expands the number of community health centers all across the country. A 4% increase doubles the Medicare budget so that we fulfill the promise to the elderly. A 4% increase. A 4% increase helps keep priorities to the military. We must pay our military folks more money. A 4% increase means we're going to spend $100 billion additional dollars next year. That's a lot of money. But for those who want to increase the size and scope of the federal government, it's not enough. Now, I want you all to understand where the trade-offs come when it comes to budgeting. The money either ends up in federal programs or it ends up in the people's pocket. And my point of view I make in Washington, and that I want you to help me on, is we can meet priorities. We can fund education and good conservation programs, we can fulfill our commitment to the elderly. We can make sure Social Security is safe and secure today and around tomorrow for the younger folks. We can do that. By growing the discretionary account at 4% and still have meaningful tax reductions. So when somebody tells you, when you hear the excuse, oh, we're not meeting our needs, you need to get them to look at the numbers. You need to get them to understand what a 4% growth means. You also ought to remind them that if they do what some in the Senate want done, which is to grow the budget 8%, we're going to roar right through any projected surplus. If we grow that budget at 8%, we come from the school of thought that it's going to serve as a huge drag on our economy. You see, there's trade-offs that have to be realized. The trade-off, the fundamental trade-off, though, is who do we trust? Who do we trust with the money? Do we trust the government or do we trust the people? And that's what this debate is about. That's what the fundamental debate is about. Now, I can remember campaigning all across the states like Carolina, and people kept saying during the course of the campaign, oh, he's just talking, because there's not going to be any tax relief. People don't want tax relief. I kept saying, well, you may be talking to different people I am. Everywhere I went, once I could convince the people that we'd meet the basic needs of government, people seemed to understand that they'd want some of their money back. That's what they seemed to understand. But the skeptics, they weren't listening. The skeptics weren't listening. But let me tell you where we are. Because of the hard work of the North Carolina congressional delegation, we passed $1.6 trillion of tax relief. The Senate is at $1.2 trillion of tax relief. Now, they are trying to reconcile the differences, but either way you cut it, tax relief is on the way. And I want to remind you all, it has nothing to do about me. It's everything to do about the people. That's what this is all about. This is the people's budget. It's a people's budget. The tax relief plan that I hope is finally adopted must incorporate these principles. One, anybody who pays taxes ought to get relief. Some of the good folks in Washington, D.C., they support what they call targeted tax relief. That means some people are targeted in and some people are targeted out. The fairest way is to say that if you pay taxes, you get relief. So I hope the plan that says everybody pays taxes gets relief is what ends up on my desk. I think it will with your help. I think it will. We need to drop, I want to tell you something about the current tax code to make sure you understand the facts. If you're struggling to get ahead in America, this tax code is unfair. It's unfair to the people at the bottom end of the economic ladder. Because our code is structured this way, for example, if you're a single mother in the state of North Carolina trying to raise 2 children, first of all, you've got the toughest job in your state. It's the hardest work in the state of North Carolina. And by the way, for all you folks that go to East Carolina University, if you're fortunate enough to become a dad, you love your children with all your heart and all your soul. The most important job you'll ever have is to be a dad. If that lady's making $22,000 a year, she's living on the outskirts of poverty. The code we have today, for every additional dollar she makes or earns, she pays a higher marginal rate than someone who is Wall Street successful. And that's not right, folks. That's not what America is about as far as we're concerned. Our code ought to say the harder you work, the more money you have in your pocket. This is a tax code that ought to make it easier for people to realize their dreams, not harder. And so therefore, we dropped the bottom rate from 15% to 10% and increased the child credit from $500 to $1,000 per child. We need to make the code more fair. We also need to make the code more fair to small businesses. There are 488,000 small businesses in your state of North Carolina who will benefit from tax relief when you cut marginal rates. Because the truth is, by far the vast majority of small businesses, who, by the way, create 75% of the new jobs in America, they don't pay corporate income taxes. They pay personal income taxes because they're either sole proprietorships or subchapter S corporations. That's reality. Reality is small business people pay personal income tax rates. And so when we drop the top rate from 39.6 to 33%, really what we're saying is we want to encourage the growth of the small business sector in America. Oh, I've heard all the rhetoric about how only certain people benefit. But the Congress must understand the importance of small business in America, and the Congress must understand that by dropping that top rate, we stimulate growth in the private sector. The role of government is not to create wealth. The role of government is to create an environment in which the entrepreneur can flourish in America. Ours is a tax code that penalizes marriage. And that's not fair. And that's not right. That's bad public policy. We ought to reward marriage and family in America. And the current tax code taxes people's assets twice. You see, we got a system where folks work all their life and they dream about passing their farm or their ranch or their small business on to a son or daughter. And yet the tax code makes it difficult to do so. There are thousands of farmers and ranchers who worry about having to sell their farm or their ranch early because of the death tax. Folks, we need to get rid of the death tax in America. You'll hear every excuse in the book about why we can't drop all rates or why the death tax, can't be eliminated. But you know how I view those excuses? I view those as excuses to keep your money in Washington. That's what I view. I view those as excuses to expand the size of the federal government. I'm here to tell you, I've looked at the numbers. We got enough money to meet priorities. But as important, we got enough money to let you keep your own money. And we need to do so. And we need to do so for two reasons. The first reason has to do with our economy. It's slowing down a little bit. And one way for us to give our economy a second wind is to give people their own money back so they can spend it in the private sector. Is to cut rates so small businesses have more cash flow to invest. Is to understand that more money circulating in the private sector will create economic growth. Tax relief is important for economic purposes. But there is a retroactively too. Sounds like we got an economist in the crowd. A right-thinking kind of economist. What the man is saying is we need to get money in your pockets as quickly as possible, and we agree. But there's a second reason why we need tax relief. The second reason why. And this comes to the heart of the debate. It has to do with people. And who do we trust? And families. Today, I'm proud to be joined by Larry and Brian. Right up there. Jennifer and Jeffrey and Katie June. Calm down. You didn't tell me you're going to bring your whole neighborhood. Let me tell you why I asked him to come. Because, you know, oftentimes in the political arena, we're always talking about numbers and budgets and growth and all that business. But behind tax relief are real-life families. That's what this is all about. I hope that's the reason why everybody who decides to run for office does to help families. To understand the importance of people in our society. These good folks now pay $3,570 in federal income taxes. Under the plan that passed the House and the plan that I submitted, they would save $1,830 when this tax relief is fully implemented. Oh, I know for some of the sophisticates, they'd say that's nothing. But for this family, it's a lot. And the fundamental question that I want the members of the Congress to address when we start dealing with the people's money is, do we want to spend that extra $1,830? That's what this debate's about, folks. Who should our government trust? And I'm going to tell you as plainly as I can. I'd rather to be spending that money than the federal government. Oh, I know some of the projects. Remember, this is money after we met basic needs. This is money after we've owned the 4% discretionary spending. There'll be some highfalutin words and great programs, but the fundamental question is who should our government trust? And we need to trust the people because the people are the great strength of America, the people of this country. It is the people of this country that make America great. I love to get out of Washington and travel into places like Greenville, North Carolina, because I'm able. I caught you. I love coming to see the people. People behind the roads. The people who are waving. That's what I love. Because it reminds me of how strong this country is. It reminds me that in Greenville, North Carolina, good people live. Why is that important? I'll tell you why it's important. Because the great hope for the country comes when people turn to a neighbor and says, what can I do to help? Turns to a neighbor in need. That's the strength of America. Our great strength is not necessarily found in our halls of government. It's found in ways in schools where teachers dedicate themselves to teaching a child. It is found in hallways of churches and synagogues where folks hear the universal call to love a neighbor just like they be loved themselves. No, the strength of this country is in the hearts and souls of our people. It's when a Boy Scout leader says to a young child, you know, there's right decisions to make and wrong decisions. I want to help you understand a right decision. It happens when somebody takes time out of their life to mentor a child. I hope when you hear of a mentoring program right here in eastern North Carolina that you say, like, there are some children in our society who wonder whether or not the American dream is meant for them. And that's going to require a loving soul putting their arm around and saying, somebody cares about you. Somebody wants you to know. Somebody wants you to know that love in our society. The problem is everybody expects the federal government to do it, but the governments can't make people love one another. No, government can hand out money, but we cannot put love in people's hearts or hope in people's hearts. It's done when loving citizens take time out of their lives to help make their communities and their neighborhoods as strong as it possibly can be. This in Washington, D.C. on taxes is fundamental to the country. It not only talks about economic vitality, but it really speaks to we ought to trust the people. We ought to trust the people with their own money, and we ought to trust the people of America to provide the compassion necessary to make sure this great land fulfills its promise for every citizen who's lucky enough to be in America. I'm honored that you come and share my hopes for our country with you. I call upon you that when senators start to vote, for example, on budgets, you might remind them of whose money they're spending. And I want to conclude by telling you what a huge honor it is to be the president of the greatest on the face of the earth. Thank you for coming. God bless. And God bless America.